Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Japan and we're going to go to another brewery who I have never tried anything from before, and this is also a style of beer that you don't come across too often in Japan, so personally I think this one has the makings of a good review and I hope that you guys enjoy it as well. So for this review then we are going to go to Sapporo, the largest city on the northernmost of the four main Japanese home islands, Hokkaido. Beautiful place incidentally that I insist you go and visit. I had a great time when I was up there and I've still got a good bit of it to see. But for this review we are going to try my first beer from Ezo Beer, who are a contract brewery, and so far the only sort of contract gypsy brewery type company that I've encountered in the Japanese beer reviews have been Far East and their Kaguya series of beers. So yeah, this particular beer is called the Yakezake beer. It comes in at 10% ABV and there is a little bit of a story behind this which I'll tell you later on in the video. But yeah, a barley wine. Not sure whether it's an American barley wine or an English one. We'll just need to see when we taste the beer, but really curious to see how this one turns out. Always cool to introduce you guys to new breweries as well, so like I say, I hope you enjoy my take on this one. This is another beer that I bought from liquor shop Asahiya in Taishibashi Yamaichi here in Osaka. Lovely little beer shop run by Koji and his daughter Rika. Great selection of Japanese beers, some really interesting American things as well as you know, a lot of kind of traditional German and Belgian beers too, so definitely worth checking out if you find yourself here in Osaka. Make sure you check out the link to them in the description below. They've got Facebook and they have Instagram. I'll try and remember to post both of them. But let's see how we get on with this one then. So as is usual with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Ezo Beer. Very first time I'm encountering these guys, like I said. There's all the usual social media down there too. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Japanese beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to whenever I've got the opportunity basically. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Ezo Beer then. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Ezo Beer are a contract brewery based in Sapporo in Hokkaido, and it was founded by Fred Kaufman. So back in 1980, because he's been in Japan now for about 40 years, he founded the beer in Mugishute in the city, and this has been regarded for a very long time as a bit of a treasure trove when it comes to craft beer. They had over 300 different kinds of beers from across the world originally, but since the craft beer boom in Japan, it has kind of expanded even further to include a lot of these Japanese craft beers. It's got a bottle shop there, well, you can buy the beers and take them away of course, but it's a kind of bar and restaurant type thing. But apparently Ezo Beer that these guys started producing was the first G beer to be sold under that name in Japan, and the name G beer is derived from Yakezake, which means, you know, basically sake brewed with local rice. But of course in Japan there's not very much malt and not all that many hops produced, so everything is imported basically. So the name G beer became associated more with just locally brewed beer rather than beer brewed with local ingredients. But you know, these guys apparently were the first one to, you know, use that term G beer. But for a long time these beers were produced under contract at Rogue Ales over in Newport in Oregon in America, a very well known and well respected brewery, but they're now brewed at Caldera Brewing in Ashland in Oregon, so still brewed over there. And at the moment there's around 10 beers released under the Ezo Beer brand. Most of their beers, or quite a few of them from what I've seen, are sold under names involving a bear. So there was Chocolate Bear, I think there was one called Black Bear, and there was one called Brown Bear as well. So yeah, they've got IPAs, I'm sure it was a stout, brown ale, I think there was a red ale or something like that in there, or an amber or something too. But yeah, quite a few different beer styles this one, and you know, that's pretty cool actually if these beers you know, I think that said these were first produced around like 1995 or something like that. So yeah, pretty cool to find the first G-Biru brewery, if you like, in Japan, even though technically it's a kind of contract gypsy brewery. But there's a good few of them have done that, of course. Like I said earlier, the Kago beer brand, or Far East Brewing Company as they're known, have done exactly the same thing. And you know, Omnipojo in Sweden, Mikkeller in Denmark, you know, there's a good few people have had a go at this before. So probably, I can't remember if Ezo Beer, they probably would outdate Mikkeller and things too if they have started back in 1995. So yeah, interesting to find another gypsy brewery here in Japan, and hopefully their beers turn out to be pretty good. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about Ezo Beer for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website, which is for the whole kind of restaurant thing. There is a bit about the restaurant, the beers they have in stock. You can order online and have them delivered anywhere in Japan, from what I gather. So that's definitely worth checking out as well. And the prices, by the looks of it, are pretty damn reasonable. So I'll probably need to look at that at some point if I ever live in Japan for a period of time. But yeah, check it out if you want to learn more. Like I say, the website's there. You can follow these guys on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages to see all of the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this one then. So like I said to you at the start of the video, this one is a 10% barley wine, and there's a little bit of a story behind this. So Yakezake, from what my girlfriend Michiko tells me, is it's someone who sort of doesn't like to think about things, but it also kind of refers to something that you try to drink, beer or alcohol or whatever, to forget about. And in 2019, just at the end of 2019, the consumption tax went up in Japan, and I've got friends who tell me that there never used to be a consumption tax or a sales tax in Japan. It originally was, I think it started off at like 2%, and it's gradually worked its way up. It was 8% before, and now it is 10%. And they do the thing in Japan over here like they do in America. They don't tell you the price that you're actually going to pay. They tell you a price and then you pay a percentage on top of that. So it's quite annoying when you go and try and pay for stuff here. They don't, you know, you think you're having to pay a certain amount and then they just add on money. To me it makes no sense. But yeah, basically a beer brewed to kind of commemorate this increase in tax, because you know people are going to complain about it, but they don't want to think about it because there's nothing they can actually do about it. So yeah, pretty cool this one, I have to say. And it's one of these bottles where the artwork is printed straight onto the glass there. But there you can see there is the Ezo Beer bottle cap on this one. You can see the outline of Hokkaido, which is pretty cool. So yeah, like I said, a 10% barley wine. Not sure whether it's an English one or an American one. I'm guessing that it's most likely to be an American one based on where it's brewed. Over in Oregon, great beer state incidentally. So without further ado, let's get it out and we will get on with the tasting then. You can see nice little bit of smoke on the opening there, and we'll get it out and into the glass. And I have to say, for a barley wine, that is pretty damn light, I have to say. It's almost just like a double IPA or something like that. But as I've told you on the channel before, the Pale Ale, the IPA, the double IPA and the barley wine are all kind of big brothers of each other. Basically, it's the malt to hop ratio that changes, and I'm really not sure, to be honest with you, what the difference between a triple IPA and a barley wine actually would be. I'm not sure what the kind of parameters or borderline is there. So yeah, that's another interesting point that we won't get into for the moment. But other barley wines that you might find in Japan, the El Diablo from St. Gallen Brewery is very nice. I'm sure Beard Beer have done one as well. I have had their wheat wine before, which was really nice. Dyson G Beer have a wheat wine as well. I've noticed that wheat wines are quite popular in Japan for some reason, but not so many barley wines. Like I say, the only one that immediately springs to mind is the El Diablo from St. Gallen, which is pretty nice actually. You can check out my review of that from a couple of years ago. But yeah, as you can see with this one, it's poured a lovely, quite bright orangey amber colour. This one, not a blood orange or anything like that, quite a bright, almost IPA coloured beer, this one. There's a solid half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of creamy coloured head on this one. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but you can see quite a few decent sized ones there, just going up towards the bottom of that head there. There was quite a little bit of sediment visible on the bottom of the bottle here, so I'm guessing that this particular beer has been bottle conditioned, so we just need to make sure that the carbonation isn't a little bit overbearing. But if I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see there is definitely a little bit of haziness to this, but obviously it's not a New England IPA, so you know the haziness is going to just be nice and fairly light. So yeah, let's have a look at the aroma on this one then and see how we get on. I'm really curious to see how this beer turns out. Yeah. So yeah, straight away with this one, you can definitely smell some of the big boozy characters out of it. It's a little bit bready. It's got some nice kind of sweet caramel in there. It's got a kind of biscuity note as well, almost like that. It's covering up the booziness. I mean, at 10%, it is a bit of a beast of a beer. It's not the strongest barley wine that I've come across in terms of ABVs. Some of the ones you'll find back home in Sweden are a little bit heavier than that, around 12% and things. But yeah, in terms of, you know, in terms of what you would expect from the style and malt wise, it really kind of pulls everything together. It's definitely a little bit of a lighter malt base that's in this one. The caramel isn't quite as caramelized and treacle and molasses like as you might sometimes get. This is definitely more of a kind of bready. It definitely is more like a kind of bready barley wine, this one, rather than a sweet brown sugary one. As I've told you before, the difference between the English barley wines is usually the way that the brown sugars come out. Usually the English ones also have a little bit of a phenolic quality to them. So the brown sugars are a little bit darker and more caramelized and roasty toasty, whereas in the American ones it's a little bit more like a sweet caramel and very juicy red fruity notes. So that's something you need to watch with this beer style when you're trying the different variants. But for me, this is a really bready, kind of caramelly, biscuity, and sort of, it's almost a little bit candied, to be honest with you. This kind of, there's definitely a little bit of an almost fudgy quality to this one. So yeah, that's an interesting point to make about this one. In terms of the hoppy character, there's a little bit of, you know, this one to me, the green side of the hops really lean towards the grassy side of things. There is a little bit of a floral character to this, but it's kind of minimal, to be honest. Yeah, mainly it's quite bright and grassy, this one, in my mind. There's a teeny little bit of earthiness in there, but that, again, I think that's quite minimal. I really find the floral qualities are taking a back seat in this one. I don't think it says when it was bottled on this. I didn't think I saw a bottled on date. That would always be a useful thing, unless it's in the kanjis and I just can't read it, of course. But I don't see a bottle date on this one, unless that's at the 21st of November. So in that case, if it is that, it will be pretty fresh. Or is that best before? It looks like it might be best before. Yeah, best before the 11th month, 21st day. So yeah, either that's a bottled on date or it's not. So we'll just need to see. I think it, yeah, 11th month, 21st year. Not sure about that one. That's the problem with not being able to read the kanjis too well, but in fairness, I should really know the month and the year one, but you know, what you're going to do. But yeah, quite a candied smelling barley wine this, but a little bit orangey, a little bit of a kind of, it's got a little bit of an almost kind of figgy, raisiny kind of note to it as well. So yeah, maybe a little bit of a, is that a little bit like papaya or mango or something? There's a wee tropical element in there as well. But in terms of the barley wine style, this isn't the most pungent one that I've come across in the aroma, nor is it the most malty. That makes sense. All the pungency would normally come from the hops, but this is a style that quite often you would want to age a little bit and just see how it matures and things. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. I'm definitely a bit lighter in appearance, and you know, it's quite a smooth but also bready and bright smelling barley wine, this one. So we just need to see how we get on with this. I think this will be a really, really interesting beer. So let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. This one is the Yakezake, named after someone who wants to forget bad things when they get drunk, basically, or they drink to forget bad things. A barley wine coming in at 10% ABV to celebrate the increase in the consumption tax here in Japan at the end of 2019. This one comes to you from Ezo Beer, a contract gypsy brewer, whatever you want to call them, from Sapporo on Hokkaido here in Japan. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, kanpai. That's pretty nice actually. And Caldera do have a good reputation for their beers, so it's not surprising that they, you know, they've made this one quite nice. I'm not sure whether Fred would have done the recipe himself and then sent it over and it's been made up for the big scale. I've heard that that's what he did with the guy at Rogue Ales before. So yeah, I'm not 100% certain about that. But I'll tell you straight away though, the main question about this beer will be whether it's a nice beer or not, and I have to say it certainly is. So thumbs up to Ezo Beer for this one. I definitely need to check out some of the other beers. And I will say with this one, it definitely makes up for what it seems to be lacking in brown sugar and stuff in the aroma. It certainly makes for that up in the flavour. So yeah, this is quite an interesting one. It's got a lovely kind of bready base to it. Straight across the middle of your palate, you'll feel that nice kind of white bready. It's almost, I think there might almost be a little bit of wheat in this. You can really feel that just forming the baseline of the beer. If you go into the centre of your palate, there's definitely a sweet caramel in there. It's almost a little bit candied in fairness as well. It's a little bit almost like fudgy or something like that. But as you move further out from the centre of your palate, you can feel there is a little bit of a kind of biscuity element to this one too, and that's just sitting on top of that lovely kind of brown and white bready layer that's there. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of two-row malt in this one. There's just something about this way the smoothness in the malt base in this is coming out. I really wouldn't be surprised if it's American two-row malt in here. There's a few different varieties of that, so there might be a few different varieties of it in here as well. But in terms of barley wine, it's definitely a bit lighter and more bready than I'm used to, but it's a really damn solid beer, and you know, you can't really go wrong with that, can you? So thumbs up to Ezo Beer for this. I think they've done a nice job on this, so yeah. Yeah, definitely worth trying if you get the chance. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness there, but it's quite minimal. That it doesn't stick around too long or stick out too much, I should say. As you come further forward along the sides of the palate, the beer gradually smoothens out a little bit. You get some nice floral aromaticity in there. And as you go round the front curve of the palate, it just becomes a little bit more lighter and grassy. This one, for me, isn't too heavy in terms of its bitterness, but we'll come to that a little bit later on. The floral character just gives it a nice bit of freshness. I mean, to me, this one strikes me as being one of these kind of new wave barley wines, or the kind of New England barley wines, to be honest, where the bitterness is taken down a good bit. But regardless of that, they've done a solid beer with this one, so you have to take your hat off to Caldera and to Ezo Beer for this. You know, it's a different take on the style, but I think it works very, very well. So yeah, fruity side of things then. This is where it gets quite interesting. So for me, I've always said that oily bubble with the fruits comes out behind that front curve of your palate. There's quite a bit of orange in this one for me, but there are also elements of tropical fruits. Like there's a little, the further you go into the aftertaste with this one, for me, there's a little hint of a mango. You know, it's maybe even got a little bit of a kind of slightly stronger passion fruity note towards the back of that oily part of the palate, but mainly it's a kind of orangey note. But there's, even with that orange, there is something else mixing in with that. I wouldn't be surprised if this beer had been made from Citra and maybe Amarillo or something similar. There's lots of different hops that can give you mango and lots of different hops that can give you orange and things, but for me the mainstay in the fruity side of this beer is the kind of is a little bit of that stronger passion fruity note, which, you know, could be Simcoe or something like that as well when you think about it, or if you want a more modern take on it, Galaxy. I think Victoria's Secret, and there are various others in America that can give you passion fruit notes. I think Idaho 7, if I remember correctly, is one of those. But yeah, this is definitely a lighter, more juicy, almost New England take on the barley wine style. Actually, I did have one of these the other day in the beer bar along at Hathor in Kyobashi here in Osaka, and it really reminds me of that beer. I think it was actually a Mikkeller one, and it was a collaboration with one of the Japanese breweries. So there seems to be a new sort of style of barley wine creeping out, because as I said earlier, normally you expect these beers to be big, heavy, sometimes phenolic, dark red fruits, lots of dark, oily caramels, almost a little bit like a Belgian quadrupel in some way, to be honest with you. But this take, for me, is a little bit kind of more brighter, sweeter, juicier kind of thing. So this is a really interesting variant of the style. But yeah, as I said, you've got a nice oily orange to that one. The further that you come forward on the tongue, you almost get a little bit of a kind of lychee, gooseberry type thing out of this one. Maybe even a little bit of a lemon zesty note in there. So yeah, there is something that's making me wonder if this is a Citra barley wine, and I don't think I've come across a Citra barley wine before, in fairness. I like playing guess the hops with these beers, but the main question with these, of course, is whether they're a good beer or not. And personally, I think this one is, and I mean, when it's 10%, it's certainly going to make you forget about that 2% increase in your consumption tax here in Japan, so keep that in mind. But yeah, a lovely take on the barley wine style, definitely a little bit more, is it right to even say new age? I've no idea, but I think this one is, if I was blind tasting this, I would probably think that it was some sort of very boozy New England style IPA, to be honest with you. I think I would struggle to place this one as a barley wine based on previous experiences, but if this is the direction that barley wines are going in New England, I need to try a few more, because this is awesome. So yeah, have a go at this beer for yourself and just see what you think. In terms of the mouthfeel then, definitely a big full-bodied beer. Carbonation is very smooth. The mouthfeel overall really is just big and oily, and that's exactly what you want from a barley wine beer. In terms of the hoppy bitterness and things, I think you'd be lucky to get 25 IBUs out of this. This is definitely one of these low bitterness beers. With the barley wines, you can age them for a while and see how they turn out. I'm not sure with the lighter ones like this, but regardless of whether this one's been aged or not, I'm pretty sure this one's probably been produced this year, to be honest with you. But I'm not sure how the lighter ones would hold up. That would be an interesting aging project to do, but unfortunately I can't buy another bottle of this beer now to take home with me. But a big, smooth, oily barley wine rather than anything else. About 20 IBUs if you're lucky. Lovely big smoothness and sweetness in the malt base. You might get a few woody undertones out of this beer the further that you go into it as well. But a lovely big oily fruitiness and just a little touch of hoppy bitterness and a lovely big smooth kind of malt base that really leans towards the sweet end of the spectrum. So yeah, let's just leave it at that for this one. The Yakezake 10% barley wine. I can feel this one going to my head already, so yeah, it really will help you forget about that nightmarish increase in the consumption tax over here. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this. A lovely beer, definitely interesting to try a barley wine that's a little bit different as well. So yeah, have a go at this for yourself and just see what you think. Definitely cool to review this one for you just after the tax increase has taken place as well. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Ezo Beer as well. Definitely cool to encounter these guys for the first time. Hopefully I can try a few of their stouts and stuff, because those are supposed to be very, very good. I heard about an Imperial chocolate orange stout or orange chocolate stout, something like that, that is supposed to be very good. That one I think might be next on my radar. But yeah, check out this brewery if you get the chance, and if you know any other barley wines in Japan, do let me know that in the comments section below. As I said, St. Gallen El Diablo is the only one that springs to mind so far. So yeah, until the next time, slander just now, and I'll catch you guys very soon. This one is the Yakezake, coming in at 10% ABV, a lovely, very bright and sweet barley wine in my mind. Lovely big oily mouthfeel, I have to say, from Ezo Beer, a contract brewery based in Sapporo in Hokkaido here in Japan, but they brew their beers over in the US. So yeah, until the next time, slàinte just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål, kampai, make sure you check out Ezo Beer and their 10% barley wine. Cheers.